No doctor could stop the royal babies crying, until a human janitor walked past humming. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The royal palace of Centauri Prime gleamed like a crystal mountain under the light of 3 moons. Inside its hallowed halls, the finest physicians in the Galactic Federation fretted over a crisis that threatened interstellar relations. The royal heir would not stop crying. The Galactic Federation of Allied Species had stood for over 3 millennia as the greatest achievement of sentient cooperation across the 12 spiral arms of the Milky Way. With over 200 member species contributing their unique talents and technologies, the Federation had ushered in an unprecedented era of peace, prosperity, and scientific advancement. Humanity, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 75 years earlier, was among the newest and least influential members. The Centaurians, in contrast, were one of the founding species, tall, elegant beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions. Their empire spanned over 40 star systems, and their royal family commanded respect across the galaxy. The birth of a royal child was always a momentous occasion, but the arrival of Princess Eloria, the first heir born in a century, had sent ripples of celebration throughout the Federation. Yet for 3 standard Federation weeks, the princess had been inconsolable. "I assure you, Your Majesty, we have exhausted every medical procedure in the Federation database," said Dr. Zavarix, the royal physician. The Arcturian doctor's normally blue facial tendrils had faded to an anxious gray as he addressed Queen Talia. "The princess is in perfect physical health. All neural scans show normal brain activity for an infant Centaurian. We have ruled out all known pathogens, allergens, and environmental factors." Queen Talia's skin rippled with distress, swirling patterns of deep purple and black revealing her mounting desperation. She cradled her wailing daughter, whose tiny skin flashed angry red pulses that matched her piercing cries. "The Summit of 12 begins in 3 days," said King Orion, his voice tense. "Leaders from every major system will be here. If we cannot quiet the princess by then, it will be a diplomatic catastrophe." The nursery chamber, designed by the finest Centaurian architects to optimize infant comfort, had been converted into a makeshift medical ward. Advanced monitoring equipment lined the crystalline walls, and specialists from across the Federation had established workstations throughout the spacious room. The ceiling projected a soothing holographic recreation of Centauri Prime's night sky, yet even this failed to calm the royal infant. Dr. Zavarix's assistant, a multi-limbed Vexorian with specialized medical appendages, approached with the latest test results displayed on a holographic readout. "We've analyzed the princess's brainwave patterns during sleep intervals. They appear normal, but there's an unusual spike in the temporal lobe that we cannot account for." "What does that mean?" demanded the king. "We're not certain," admitted Dr. Zavarix. "The princess's physiology is, of course, unique. Royal Centaurians have always displayed heightened sensitivity compared to the general population. That sensitivity is what makes our bloodline capable of leading our people," said the queen. "But it should not cause our child such distress." A gentle knock at the nursery door interrupted them. The Grand Chamberlain, Lauresius, entered with a bow so deep his long, pointed ears nearly touched the polished floor. "Your Majesties, the Tellurian ambassador has arrived with the Federation's chief medical director." King Orion nodded grimly. "Show them in. At this point, we will hear any suggestion, no matter how unlikely." The door slid open again to reveal Ambassador Chun, the human representative to Centauri Prime, alongside Dr. Morris Yen, the Federation's highest-ranking medical authority. The Tellurian, as many older species still referred to humans, was a petite woman with graying hair pulled back in a severe bun. The chief medical director was approximate, his translucent skull housing a visible brain that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. "Your Majesties," said Ambassador Chun with a formal bow, "I present Dr. Morris Yen, who has personally overseen the treatment of over 2,000 species across the Federation." Dr. Moraxian's voice emerged from a translator device at his neck. "I regret that my arrival was delayed by the ion storms in the Rigel sector. I have reviewed all medical data transmitted thus far and have prepared several experimental protocols that may. The princess's cries suddenly intensified, cutting off the Proximan's words. The queen's skin flashed with pain as she tried to comfort her child. As you can see, Doctor, the situation is dire, said King Orion. Indeed, said Dr. Morrison. With your permission, I would like to begin with a comprehensive neural mapping procedure. It is non-invasive, but will require. The nursery door slid open again, but this time without announcement. A human male in gray maintenance coveralls backed into the room, pulling a hovering cleaning cart. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and a mop of unruly dark brown hair. He wore earbuds connected to an antiquated personal audio device clipped to his belt, technology considered charmingly primitive by Federation standards. Oh, the man turned and froze when he saw the royal gathering. He quickly removed his earbuds. I'm sorry, Your Majesties. The schedule said this chamber was due for atmospheric filtration maintenance at this hour. I'll come back later. Ambassador Chin's face flushed with embarrassment. Your Majesties, please forgive this intrusion. This is Miles Harper, part of the human maintenance staff assigned to the palace. It's my fault entirely, said Miles, bowing awkwardly and beginning to back toward the door. But something remarkable happened. As Miles spoke, the princess's cries began to subside. By the time he finished his apology, her wails had diminished to whimpers. The room fell into stunned silence, broken only by the princess's softening cries. Queen Talia was the first to notice. Wait, she said, her skin shifting to a cautious yellow. She's coming. All eyes turned to the infant princess, whose angry red pulses had slowed, her tiny face relaxing for the first time in weeks. Impossible, whispered Dr. Zavarix. King Orion studied the human janitor with sudden intensity. You, human, what were you doing just now, before you entered? Miles Harper shifted uncomfortably under the monarch's gaze. Just routine maintenance, Your Majesty. I was listening to music while I worked. Old Earth stuff. Nothing special. You were making sounds. Vocalizing, said the king. Oh, you mean humming? Miles shrugged. Yeah, I guess I was. It's just a habit when I work. Approach the princess, commanded the queen. Miles glanced at Ambassador Chun, who nodded encouragingly despite her clear confusion. He stepped forward cautiously until he stood before the queen and the swaddled infant. Would you hum again? Asked Queen Talia. Feeling extremely self-conscious with all eyes on him, Miles cleared his throat and began to hum the simple melody he'd been enjoying earlier, an old Earth folk song his grandmother had sung to him as a child. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Princess Eloria's skin shifted from angry red to a soft, peaceful blue. Her cries stopped completely, and her large, luminous eyes, typical of Centaurian infants, fixed on Miles with apparent fascination. By the first star, breathed King Orion, his own skin pulsing with astonishment. Dr. Morris Yen stepped forward, his brain glowing brightly with excitement. Fascinating. There must be something about the human's vocal vibrations that resonates with the princess's auditory sensory system. But we've tried sonic therapies from 17 different species, protested Dr. Zavarix. Nothing had any effect. Continue humming, the queen instructed Miles, who obliged, moving through several melodies from his personal collection. The princess remained calm, her skin now shifting to pleasant pastels that indicated contentment in Centaurian infants. After a few minutes, her eyelids began to droop. She's falling asleep, whispered the queen in disbelief. She hasn't slept properly in weeks. Miles maintained a gentle, continuous hum as the princess drifted off to sleep for the first time in days. The assembled doctors and royal advisors watched in amazement as the infant's breathing settled into the steady rhythm of deep slumber. When Miles finally stopped humming, the princess remained asleep in her mother's arms. Queen Talia looked up at him, her skin glowing with a warm golden light of gratitude. What is your name again, human? Miles Harper, Your Majesty. Mr. Harper, it seems you have accomplished what the finest medical minds in the Federation could not. How is this possible? Ambassador Chen stepped forward. If I may, Your Majesty, humans have a long cultural tradition of using vocal music to soothe infants. We call them lullabies. We are familiar with the concept of musical comfort for young, said King Orion. Many species share similar practices. But why would a human's vocalizations affect a Centaurian royal child when our own songs had no effect? Dr. Moraxian's translator clicked as he considered. Perhaps there is something unique about human vocal patterns or the specific frequencies Mr. Harper produces. Miles shifted awkwardly. It's just humming, sir. Nothing special about it. On the contrary, said Dr. Moraxian, there must be something quite remarkable about it. I would like to conduct some tests, with your permission. King Orion nodded decisively. Mr. Harper, your regular duties are hereby suspended. You will remain at the palace, at our expense, until we understand why your humming has such an effect on the princess. Miles glanced at Ambassador Chun, who nodded firmly. Of course, Your Majesty, he said. Happy to help. For the next 24 hours, the royal nursery became the site of intense scientific investigation. Dr. Moraxian and Dr. Zavarix collaborated on a series of tests, recording and analyzing Miles's humming from every conceivable angle. They placed sensors on his throat to measure vocal cord vibrations. They analyzed the acoustic properties of his voice. They even mapped his brain activity while he hummed different melodies. Meanwhile, the princess remained calm whenever Miles hummed near her, but began to grow distressed if he was silent for too long or moved too far away. The data is fascinating, Dr. Moraxian explained to the royal couple as they reviewed the holographic displays. Mr. Harper's vocal production contains harmonics in ranges that most species cannot perceive, let alone produce. But what does this have to do with the princess? Asked King Orion. Royal Centaurians have always possessed heightened sensory abilities, explained Dr. Zavarix. That's well documented. But it appears the princess has an extraordinarily sensitive range of hearing, even for a royal. She can detect frequencies that our instruments struggle to measure. Miles sat in a corner of the nursery, gently humming to the princess, who lay in a floating bassinet beside him. She gazed up at him with wide, curious eyes, her skin glowing a peaceful blue. The human's humming contains complex harmonic patterns that seem to resonate specifically with the princess's unique neurological structure, continued Dr. Moraxian. It's as if his voice is activating pleasure centers in her brain that no other sound can reach. But why a human? Asked the queen. Of all species in the Federation? Ambassador Chun, who had been mostly observing until now, spoke up. Your Majesty, if I may offer a theory. Humans evolved on a planet with one of the most acoustically varied environments in the known galaxy. Our world contains millions of different animal species, each with unique vocalizations. Our ancestors had to distinguish between sounds that meant danger and sounds that meant safety. As a result, human vocal production and perception developed differently. Dr. Moraxian's brain pulsed with excitement. Yes, humans can produce a wider range of vocal sounds than almost any other species. They can whisper, shout, sing, hum, whistle, sometimes simultaneously. Their vocal apparatus is remarkably versatile. And this versatility creates harmonics that benefit our child? Asked Queen Talia. It appears so, said Dr. Zavarix. The princess seems particularly receptive to specific patterns in Mr. Harper's humming. It's as if her brain was waiting for precisely these frequencies. King Orion paced the nursery, his skin shifting through thoughtful blues and greens. The Summit of 12 begins tomorrow. We cannot present our heir to the Federation leaders if she might begin wailing uncontrollably. Then perhaps Mr. Harper should remain with the princess during the summit, suggested Ambassador Chun. Miles looked up in surprise. Me? At a royal summit? I'm just a janitor. You are now much more than that, said Queen Talia firmly. You are the only being in the known galaxy who can comfort our daughter. That makes you indispensable to the royal household of Centauri Prime. And so it was that Miles Harper, who had arrived on Centauri Prime just 6 months earlier seeking the most basic employment available to humans in the Federation, found himself appointed as the royal comforter to Princess Eloria. The position came with quarters adjacent to the royal nursery, a substantial salary increase, and the unprecedented honor of attending the Summit of 12, the most exclusive diplomatic gathering in the Federation, as part of the royal entourage. This is insane, Miles said to Ambassador Chun as palace staff delivered his few belongings to his new luxurious quarters. I was mopping floors yesterday. Now I'm going to be in the same room as the 12? All because I can hum. The ambassador smiled tightly. Mr. Harper, you have been granted an extraordinary opportunity to elevate humanity's standing in the Federation. The Centaurians are founding members with immense influence. Their goodwill toward humans could advance our position by decades. No pressure, then, Miles muttered. Just keep the princess calm during the summit, said Ambassador Chun. And for the love of Earth, follow royal protocol exactly as you're instructed. That evening, Miles was summoned to meet with the royal protocol master, a severe Centaurian named Sereth whose skin remained an unnerving static gray at all times, a sign of exceptional emotional control that took Centaurians decades to achieve. The Summit of 12 is the most significant diplomatic event in the Federation calendar, Sereth explained as he circled Miles with a critical eye. You will stand behind the royal family, holding the princess if necessary. You will hum only when signaled to do so by the queen. You will speak to no one unless directly addressed by a member of the 12. Got it, said Miles. Stay quiet. Hum on command. Sereth's skin flickered briefly with irritation before returning to gray. Your new formal attire will be delivered by morning. It has been designed to reflect your unique position, neither servant nor advisor, but essential to the royal household. What exactly is my title? Miles asked. You are the royal harmonist, replied Sereth. The queen herself chose the designation. Miles suppressed a smile. From janitor to royal harmonist in one day, his friends back on Earth would never believe it. The next morning, Miles found himself dressed in elegant robes of deep blue with silver accents, the colors of the Centaurian royal household. The fabric was unlike anything he had ever worn, lighter than silk, but stronger than carbon fiber. When he entered the royal nursery, he found the queen already there, preparing the princess for the summit. Queen Talia's skin shimmered with regal gold and purple patterns, and she wore an elaborate crown of crystalline materials that caught and refracted light in mesmerizing ways. Mr. Harper, she acknowledged with a nod. The princess has been asking for you. Miles knew that 3-week-old Centaurian infants couldn't speak, but they could communicate through skin color patterns. The princess's skin was currently shifting between anxious yellow and a hopeful shade of turquoise. Good morning, princess, Miles said softly and began to hum. Immediately, the princess's skin settled into content blue tones, and she made a cooing sound that Miles had never heard from her before. Queen Talia watched the interaction with intense interest. Your effect on her remains remarkable, she said. Our specialists have been analyzing your recordings all night, trying to replicate the effect. Any luck? Asked Miles. None, admitted the queen. Even perfect computer simulations of your voice patterns fail to soothe her. She knows the difference, somehow. Miles continued to hum as the queen prepared the princess, dressing her in ceremonial robes that matched her parents' regalia. The summit will last approximately 4 hours, the queen explained. The princess will be presented to the 12 at the beginning of the proceedings. Then you will take her to the adjoining royal chamber, where you can continue to keep her calm. We will have monitors so you can observe the summit, and we will have monitors to observe you and the princess. I understand, Your Majesty, said Miles. The queen hesitated, then added, Mr. Harper, I want you to know that the king and I are deeply grateful for your assistance. The princess's distress was difficult to bear. For a moment, her formal demeanor softened, and Miles saw not just a queen but a mother who had been desperately worried about her child. It made the Centaurian monarch seem suddenly more relatable, more human, though he knew that comparison might be considered offensive. I'm happy to help, Your Majesty, Miles said sincerely. She's a beautiful child. The queen's skin briefly flashed with maternal pride before returning to its formal patterns. It is time. The delegates will be arriving soon. The Summit of 12 was held in the Grand Convocation Hall, a vast chamber with a domed ceiling that perfectly replicated the star field visible from Centauri Prime. 12 massive thrones arranged in a circle dominated the center of the room, with smaller seating areas radiating outward for the entourages of each major power. Miles stood behind the royal family's throne platform, the princess cradled in his arms, humming softly as the hall filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He recognized some species from his Federation cultural training. The silicon-based draconians, the collective consciousness of the hive mind of Beetlejuice, the aquatic Oceanus delegates in their hovering water tanks. Ambassador Chen stood with the other human representatives in the far outer ring, afforded minimal status as one of the Federation's newest members. She caught Miles's eye and gave him a subtle nod of encouragement. When the 12 had assembled, King Orion rose to address them. Honored leaders of the Galactic Federation, we welcome you to Centauri Prime for this gathering of cosmic significance. Before we begin our deliberations on the matters before us, the Queen and I wish to present our daughter, Princess Aloria, heir to the Centaurian systems and future guardian of the sacred treaties. This was Miles's cue. He stepped forward, still humming softly, and presented the princess to the assembled delegates. The infant's skin glowed with peaceful blue and purple swirls as she regarded the leaders of the galaxy with curious eyes. A murmur of appreciation rippled through the hall. The presentation of a royal heir was a rare and momentous occasion, symbolizing the continuation of the Federation's founding lineage. We also wish to acknowledge a remarkable discovery, continued the king. Many of you may have heard of the princess's distress in recent weeks. No medical intervention could ease her discomfort until we discovered, quite by accident, that she responds positively to the harmonic vocalizations of this human, Miles Harper, who now serves as royal harmonist to the princess. All eyes turned to Miles, who fought the urge to shrink back from the collective attention of the galaxy's most powerful beings. The human's vocal harmonics appear uniquely suited to the princess's heightened Centaurian senses, explained the king. Our scientists continue to study this phenomenon, which may have implications for interspecies communication and medical treatment throughout the Federation. The Arctuvian Empress, a being of living crystal who spoke through vibrations in the air, addressed the king. This is most intriguing, King Orion. Might we observe a demonstration of this effect? Miles glanced at the queen, who nodded her permission. He stopped humming, and within moments, the princess's skin began to shift toward distressed red tones. Her face scrunched up in preparation to cry. Then Miles resumed humming, and she immediately relaxed again, her skin returning to peaceful blues. The demonstration sent another wave of murmurs through the assembly. The hive mind of Beetlejuice, speaking through its primary drone, buzzed with interest. We sense potential beyond mere infant comfort. The human's harmonic range exceeds our collective analysis parameters. Miles wasn't entirely sure what that meant, but it sounded like a compliment. As planned, after the presentation, Miles carried the princess to the adjoining royal chamber where they could observe the summit through monitors while remaining visible to the royal couple through a separate feed. Well, Princess, Miles said softly as he settled into a comfortable chair with the infant. That wasn't so bad, was it? Just a bunch of important people making a fuss over you. Get used to it. I think that's your life from now on. The princess cooed and reached a tiny hand toward his face, her skin pulsing with contented colors. Miles hummed quietly, cycling through his repertoire of Earth melodies, everything from classical pieces to pop songs to folk tunes. He had no formal musical training, but he had always had a good ear and a tendency to get songs stuck in his head. As the summit proceeded on the monitors, Miles found himself reflecting on the strange turn his life had taken. 6 months ago, he had been struggling to find work on Earth after dropping out of university. The Federation's expansion of diplomatic relations had created a demand for human workers in various capacities, and the janitor position had been one of the few that didn't require advanced degrees or specialized training. He had taken the job as a temporary measure, a way to experience life off Earth while figuring out what to do with his life. Now he was the royal harmonist to his Centaurian princess, watching the most powerful beings in the galaxy debate matters of cosmic importance while he hummed lullabies. Life was strange sometimes. After about 2 hours, the princess fell asleep in Miles's arms, her skin glowing with soft, peaceful pulses. He continued to hum softly, having learned that she could sense when he stopped even in her sleep. The door to the chamber slid open silently, and Ambassador Chen entered, looking both excited and anxious. "How is she?" the ambassador whispered, nodding toward the sleeping princess. Doing great, Miles replied quietly, still humming between words. How's the summit going? That's why I'm here, said Ambassador Chun. The discussion has turned to the expansion initiative, whether to extend Federation membership invitations to species in the Outer Rim. It's a controversial topic, especially regarding newer members like humanity having a voice in the decision. Miles nodded. Humanity's relative status within the Federation was a constant point of tension. Despite being technologically advanced by Earth standards, humans were considered primitive compared to most member species. Their territories were limited, their political influence minimal. The Centaurian position could sway the vote, continued Ambassador Chun. And the royal family seems to have developed a certain appreciation for humanity, thanks to you. Miles raised an eyebrow. You want me to use my position to influence galactic politics? Of course not. Ambassador Chun replied quickly. That would be inappropriate and probably ineffective. I just wanted you to be aware of what's happening, and to thank you for inadvertently boosting humanity's image. The fact that a human solved a problem that baffled the Federation's finest physicians has not gone unnoticed. Miles looked down at the sleeping princess. I didn't solve anything, he said. I just happened to make sounds she likes. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the ones most easily overlooked, said Ambassador Chun, especially by those who consider themselves advanced. The ambassador left, and Miles returned his attention to the summit proceedings on the monitor. The debate had indeed turned to the expansion initiative, with passionate arguments from both sides. The princess stirred in her sleep, and Miles adjusted his humming to a slower, more soothing melody. Her skin, which had begun to show flickers of distress, settled back into peaceful patterns. After 4 hours, the Summit of 12 concluded its first day of deliberations. The royal family returned to the chamber to collect the princess, clearly pleased to find her peaceful and content. You have performed admirably, Mr. Harper, said King Orion. The princess's presentation made a strong impression on the delegates. Several inquired about your unique abilities, added Queen Talia. The medical consortium has requested permission to study your vocalizations in greater detail. Miles shifted uncomfortably. I'm happy to help with research, Your Majesty, but I'm not sure there's anything special about my voice. On the contrary, said the Queen, you possess something remarkable, even if you do not recognize it yourself. That evening, as Miles returned to his new quarters, he found Dr. Morris Yin waiting for him, the Proximan's brain glowing with barely contained excitement. Mr. Harper, said the Federation's chief medical director, I hope you don't mind this unscheduled visit. I have a hypothesis I wish to discuss with you immediately. Of course, said Miles, gesturing for the Proximan to enter. I have been analyzing the data from our tests, Dr. Morris Yin explained, projecting holographic charts into the air between them. What we initially believed was a simple case of pleasing harmonics has revealed something far more significant. The holographs showed wavelength patterns that meant little to Miles, but clearly excited the doctor. Your humming contains what we might call emotional frequencies, harmonic patterns that directly stimulate emotional responses in the listener. Most species produce such frequencies unintentionally and in limited ranges. But humans, and you in particular, generate these patterns across an extraordinary spectrum. Miles frowned. Are you saying I'm emotionally manipulating the princess? Not at all, Dr. Morrison assured him. You're providing emotional comfort through sound, something humans have done for their infants for millennia. What's remarkable is that these patterns transcend species barriers. The princess isn't just hearing pleasant sounds. She's receiving emotional reassurance that operates on a nearly universal neurological level. But why me specifically? Asked Miles. I'm not a singer or musician. That's what makes this discovery so fascinating, said Dr. Morrison. Your particular voice contains harmonics that most beings can't consciously perceive, but that register deeply in certain neural structures. And Centaurian royals, with their enhanced sensory abilities, are particularly receptive to these frequencies. The doctor's brain pulsed with bright colors. Mr. Harper, this discovery could revolutionize interspecies communication and medical treatment throughout the Federation. Sonic therapy based on human vocal patterns could help patients suffering from conditions we've never been able to treat effectively. Miles sat down heavily as he considered the implications. So my humming could help others besides the princess? Potentially, yes, said Dr. Morrisian. With your permission, I would like to conduct further studies. Your contribution could benefit billions across the Federation. Miles thought about it. He had come to Centauri Prime seeking direction, a purpose beyond the mundane struggles of life on Earth. Could this be it? Not just comforting one royal infant, but potentially helping countless beings across the galaxy? I'm in, he said. Whatever studies you need to do, I'm willing. The next 3 days followed a similar pattern. Miles attended the summit with the princess, keeping her calm and content while the leaders of the galaxy debated matters of cosmic importance. In the evenings, he participated in Dr. Moraxian's increasingly complex studies of his vocal abilities. The princess grew more attached to Miles with each passing day. She would track him with her eyes whenever he moved around the room, and her skin would display patterns of distress if he was out of sight for too long. She's imprinted on you, explained Dr. Zavarix. It's a normal developmental process for Centaurian infants, though usually they imprint on their parents or close family members. Is that a problem? Miles asked, concerned. Not necessarily, said the doctor. But it does suggest that your presence in her life should continue for some time. Abrupt separation could be traumatic during this critical developmental stage. On the final day of the summit, the deliberations reached their conclusion. The vote on the expansion initiative was scheduled as the last item on the agenda, and tension filled the grand convocation hall as the time approached. Miles stood in the royal chamber, watching the proceedings on the monitor while humming to the princess. She was awake and alert, her skin shifting through curious patterns of blue and green as she gazed up at him. On the monitor, King Orion rose to address the assembly. Before we proceed to the final vote, I wish to share some insights gained during this gathering. As many of you know, our daughter has formed an unexpected bond with a human, whose unique vocal abilities provide her comfort when nothing else could. The king's skin displayed formal patterns of royal blue and gold, but Miles had learned enough about Centaurian expressions to detect the genuine emotion beneath. This experience has reminded us of a fundamental truth, that greatness can be found in unexpected places, and that even the newest members of our Federation may possess gifts we have yet to recognize. The human harmony that suits our daughter may be but one example of the untapped potential in species we have considered primitive or undeveloped. Miles felt a surge of pride at the king's words, not just for himself, but for humanity as a whole. Therefore, continued King Orion, Centauri Prime will vote in favor of the expansion initiative, with the condition that new member species be evaluated not just on technological advancement, but on their unique biological and cultural contributions to our collective future. The vote that followed was close, but with the Centaurian support, the expansion initiative passed. Ambassador Chen sent Miles a message of thanks, noting that the initiative included provisions that would enhance humanity's standing within the Federation. After the summit concluded, life at the royal palace settled into a new routine. Miles spent his days with the princess, humming and talking to her as she grew and developed. In the evenings, he worked with Dr. Morrisian and a team of Federation scientists who studied his vocal patterns and developed new medical applications based on their findings. The first breakthrough came when they discovered that Miles's humming could ease the symptoms of a neurological condition that affected draconians, causing painful seizures that no previous treatment could fully control. The second came when they found that certain frequencies in his voice stimulated cellular regeneration in Vexorian tissue, accelerating healing by nearly 300%. With each new discovery, the importance of what Dr. Morrisian now called human harmonic therapy grew, and Miles found himself at the center of a burgeoning field of medical science. 6 months after the summit, as Miles sat in the royal garden humming to the princess, who now could sit up on her own and whose skin displayed increasingly complex patterns of color and emotion, Queen Talia approached them. "Mr. Harper," she said formally, her skin displaying the royal patterns she wore for official business, "the Federation Medical Consortium has submitted a request for you to establish a training program for human vocal therapists. They believe that while your particular voice has unique properties, other humans could be taught to produce similar beneficial effects. Miles looked down at the princess, who was playing with a floating toy, her skin glowing with happy yellow and pink swirls. "I would need to leave Centauri Prime," he said. "Yes," said the queen. Her formal patterns slipped briefly, revealing flickers of maternal concern. "The princess has formed a strong bond with you. However, Dr. Zavarix believes she has progressed to a stage where separation would be manageable, provided it is gradual, and she has recordings of your voice to ease the transition." Miles felt a twinge of sadness at the thought of leaving the princess, but also excitement at the prospect of expanding human harmonic therapy to help others across the Federation. "The decision is yours, Mr. Harper," said the queen. "You have fulfilled your duty to the royal household admirably. We would not stand in the way of your broader service to the Federation, should you choose that path." That night, Miles sat in his quarters, contemplating his options. When he had arrived on Centauri Prime, he had been a college dropout with few prospects, taking a janitor position just to experience life off Earth. Now he had the opportunity to establish a new field of therapy that could benefit billions. Yet he had also formed a genuine attachment to the princess, whose personality emerged more clearly each day. She was curious and determined, her skin often displaying patterns of intense concentration as she explored the world around her. As Miles pondered his future, a call came through on his communication device. It was Ambassador Chun. "Mr. Harper," she said, her expression serious. "I've just received news that may influence your decision regarding the medical consortium's offer." "What is it?" asked Miles. "Earth's status within the Federation has been formally elevated, largely due to the impact of your discovery. Human harmonic therapy is being hailed as one of the most significant medical breakthroughs in the past century." Miles blinked in surprise. "That's wow." "Indeed," said Ambassador Chun. "Your work has demonstrated that humanity has unique contributions to make to the Federation, beyond our technology or resources. You've shown the galaxy that even a human janitor can possess gifts that the most advanced species lack." The ambassador's formal demeanor softened slightly. "Whatever you decide about the consortium's offer, you should know that you've already changed humanity's place in the stars. Not bad for someone who was mopping floors 6 months ago." After the call ended, Miles went to the window of his quarters, gazing out at the 3 moons of Centauri Prime. He thought about his journey, from an uncertain young man seeking direction to the founder of a new field of medical science. He thought about the princess, who had responded to his humming when nothing else could comfort her, forming a bond that crossed the boundaries of species and culture. And he thought about the future, not just his own, but humanity's place in the vast cosmic community of the Federation. In that moment, Miles Harper, once a janitor and now the royal harmonist of Centauri Prime, made his decision. The next morning, he met with the king and queen in the royal study. The princess sat on a cushioned play area nearby, experimenting with a set of crystalline blocks that responded to her emotional patterns. "Your Majesties," Miles said with a formal bow, "I am deeply honored by the trust you've placed in me and by the opportunity offered by the medical consortium. After careful consideration, I believe I can best serve both the princess and the wider Federation through a compromise." "We are listening," said King Orion. "I propose establishing the Human Harmonic Therapy Training Center here on Centauri Prime," said Miles. "This would allow me to maintain regular contact with the princess during this crucial developmental stage while also advancing the therapy for wider use. As she grows more independent, I can gradually transition to a fuller role with the consortium." Queen Talia's skin displayed ripples of thoughtful blue. "An interesting proposal. The princess would benefit from continued contact, and Centauri Prime would gain prestige as the birthplace of this new therapy." "There is precedent," noted King Orion. "The Federation's diplomatic academy is hosted by the Arcturians, giving them considerable influence in interstellar relations." Additionally, Miles continued, "I believe this arrangement would symbolize the new relationship between Centauri Prime and Earth, one of the Federation's oldest members working directly with one of its newest for mutual benefit." The royal couple exchanged glances, their skin patterns shifting in the subtle communication that married Centaurians often developed. "Your proposal has merit, Mr. Harper," said the king. We will support the establishment of the Human Harmonic Therapy Center on Centauri Prime, under joint Centaurian and Earth administration. Thank you, Your Majesties, said Miles with another bow. The princess, as if sensing the importance of the moment, abandoned her blocks and crawled toward Miles, her skin glowing with affectionate purples and golds. Miles knelt down and began to hum her favorite melody, a simple Earth tune that had traveled across light years to forge an unexpected bond between species. As the princess reached out to touch his face, her tiny fingers trailing along his cheek, Miles reflected on how often the most profound connections arose from the simplest acts, like a janitor humming as he worked, unaware that his voice carried harmonies that could bridge the gulf between worlds. In the months that followed, the Human Harmonic Therapy Center grew rapidly. Humans with musical aptitude were recruited from Earth and trained in the specific techniques that Miles had developed. The medical applications expanded as researchers discovered more conditions that responded to human vocal harmonics. Princess Eloria continued to thrive, growing from an infant into a toddler with a strong personality and a fascination with sound. Though she no longer needed Miles's humming to remain calm, she still delighted in their sessions together, her skin displaying complex patterns of joy and curiosity as he introduced her to new melodies from across human history. 1 year after the Summit of 12, at the formal dedication ceremony for the completed Harmonic Therapy Center, Miles stood beside the royal family as King Orion addressed the assembled dignitaries. "This center represents more than a medical breakthrough," said the king. "It symbolizes the unexpected ways in which different species can complement one another. The human voice, containing harmonics that our advanced Centaurian ears can detect, but our voices cannot produce, reminds us that advancement does not always follow a single path." Ambassador Chun, now elevated to Earth's senior Federation representative, nodded in agreement. Humanity's standing had risen dramatically in the past year, with human representatives now included in councils and committees previously closed to them. After the ceremony, as the dignitaries mingled in the center's grand atrium, Miles found himself approached by Dr. Morris Yin, whose brain glowed with the patterns Miles had learned to recognize as profound satisfaction. "Your journey from janitor to founder of a new medical field is most remarkable, Mr. Harper," said the Proximant. "When I arrived at the palace that day, I had 17 experimental protocols prepared for the princess, all based on advanced technology and complex neurological manipulation. None would have succeeded where your simple humming did. Sometimes the simplest solution is the one most easily overlooked," said Miles, echoing Ambassador Chin's words from a year earlier. "Indeed," agreed Dr. Morris Yin. "It is a lesson many advanced species would do well to remember." Princess Eloria, now steady on her feet, toddled over to them. Her skin displayed the royal patterns she was learning to control, but with playful swirls of color that betrayed her youth. "Miles' song," she demanded in the simplified Centaurian speech of children. Miles grinned and knelt down to her level. "As you wish, Your Highness." And there, in the center that bore testimony to how far he had come from his days pushing a cleaning cart through palace corridors, Miles Harper began to hum. The princess's skin glowed with delight as the familiar harmonics washed over her, and around them, the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations fell silent, listening to the simple human melody that had changed the course of interstellar history. For in that moment, they all recognized a truth that would reshape their understanding of the cosmos. That greatness could be found in the most unexpected places, and that even the newest arrivals to the galactic community might carry gifts that the stars themselves had been waiting to hear. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.